So, we are finally, at long last, moving on to round number 3 of the Aquamarine Cup, Group C. For this round, we have Lyle, my name is Hubis, we have X9 Breaker, and Mr. Meltimus. We have an electronics colony. Generally low prices with the exception of power, food, and steel, also oxygen, but who cares. That is good carbon right in the middle, but it's near nothing else. The aluminum is really far. The water is up north, which is workable, but you don't want to be that far from both things. On the other hand, the other options don't look great either. Like you can look to get a pretty good scientist over here. Aluminum's a bit farther away, but that's something you can work with. You can also drop an expansive into this field and feel pretty good about it, as long as you pick up the water quickly, but that's obviously not going to happen this game. We'll see how players deal with things instead. I am a bit nervous about scientific here. It definitely reduces some of the advantage of being in this area, just because you, as an expansive or something, you normally just get the extra advantage of mining both resources right away. As a scientist, you don't normally really want mines, so it ends up just being kind of a weaker thing where you're pulling in iron that's doing not much of anything for you. It's fine though. Still going to be fine. Just needs to figure out a plan for water. We'll see what that is. I am concerned now about Mr. Meltimus going for this HQ1 geothermal plant. Power did start high, so it's an interesting idea. It will pay off reasonably, except for the... Okay, that's cancelled out going into the third steel mill. With steel starting double, the geothermal was always going to be hard to get down. It would be a really slow play. Getting this third steel mill down just makes things a lot faster and is much more comfortable. Let's see. Going to move into this high aluminum is also nice. Gets a good amount for the upgrade process. That's really all you can ask for. On the other hand, the two scavengers are... Oh wait. Meltimus is picking up a medium aluminum. There's going to be a lot of shipping. The fair distance, and there's a lot of iron in there that you don't really want, so that just could be a bit dangerous. Same thing, except more so for my name is Hubis. Just this high iron is going to be producing so many freighters. There's just going to be a massive overproduction of iron in this game. We'll see how everyone deals with that. Lyle did land over here in this interesting little area with the double tile, carbon silicon. Just being able to worry both at the same time, again, is a nice thing. But the carbon is fairly weak. Only 3 carbon per second production right now. Could be expanded into 4.75 or so. I think that's right. But on the other hand, does have good access to water, and this carbon is all adjacent, so it's not a big deal. It's something he'll be able to transition out of eventually. Anyway, we see aluminum is just insane right now, and power is also pretty high. We have both our scientists in power. Mr. Meltimus, we saw pretty early on, was very interested in getting that geotherm. Made the wise decision to get to 2 first, put down more steel before getting in. Does leave this water exposed for longer, and that is concerning, but it should play out okay. X9 Breaker picking up a nice claim for 18k, not too expensive. Is able to expand into more aluminum off of that. Should get to HQ3 at a reasonable speed. Lyle up here, moving into this triple solar panel, is probably going to be able to make a bit of power money and take advantage of the power price. Also moving into more water on HQ3 already, has a nice lead, is going to look to expand it with all these plays. It should be what he's on track to do. Name is Hubis over here. Again, it always was a bit awkward starting with the iron, going to the steel on HQ1. Steel was making a decent amount of money, but not an amazing amount of money. It's expensive to really get running with the power cost, 0.3 power per steel mill, and really what it's doing is making upgrades cheaper for both the scientific components. Generally, you don't want to be doing that. Yeah, managing to get to HQ3. Would love to see more carbon production at this point. It's going to be hard to sustain any sort of construction without that carbon. Is set up for a decent transition into a bunch of markets since he already has all the water. Bunch of farms, bunch of reactors would both go quite well. Meanwhile, like we're talking about, Lyle is already up to HQ4 and is still in the lead in cash plus resources. Which kind of highlights how big the advantage is. Moving into these reactors with that third water pump is just going to be excellent money. One thing I would have liked to see, just small placement issues. This connects up the two clusters. There are no power surges, so it's less of a problem, but it wasn't really a need for that. These could have been separate. Bit more resilient to black market. It also puts you in a position where you can connect up to the water more easily, as this is going to be a significant fuel consumer, and also just a lot of claims to be spending, where it may or may not end up being necessary for the whole game. I am really kind of impressed that throughout all this, like with just the high carbon core A here, and just the 3 carbon a second here, carbon has been staying reasonably in check. That is partially due to slow upgrades across the board, but is something I would have expected to increase more quickly. 18K for a Pleasure Dome auction is fairly cheap. $158 from the Pleasure Dome with a okay set of HQs. There are going to be 2 more Pleasure Domes coming down. That is probably more Pleasure Domes than you really want to support on this map. I would really love to cancel 2 of them, especially since they're all from the same player, but that does not look like it's going to happen. It's unfortunate. Each Pleasure Dome does expand the pool of money slightly that is divided between them, but they are still kind of cannibalizing each other's profits. That's because the divisor grows quicker than the dividend. I think I got those terms right, and it's been a while. Okay, anyway, I should be looking at more players. Yeah. This guy, never getting into the life support markets despite the water production, is part of what's driven this D-debt. And they're just very profitable markets, and they would protect against some of these issues. Whereas steel doesn't do anything positive for you along those fronts. It just makes money, but it's not even making money better than the life support. Gotta be careful about that. X9 has managed to expand into a ton of reactors, auto-selling that, whereas Lyle is stockpiling, meaning that X9 is going to get a fair bit of the immediate profits from that. Also managed to block off a significant amount of Mr. Meltimus's water. This is something we talked about earlier. It was always a risk to leave this open with other players that would have wanted in, and we see that risk manifesting itself. Getting punished for taking the risk. Anyway, it still is definitely an awkward position for X9 to be in. Would have really liked teleportation, but obviously not an option anymore. Kind of sitting with an idle patent lab right now, even though I mean, nanotech and thinking machines have already been picked up, both strong patents, but really don't want to see this continuing to sit there. So geothermal auction at 7K is real cheap. Power is reasonably controlled. It's climbing slightly. We already have 2 geotherms down for Mr. Meltimist, so it is definitely a bit of a concern to go for a third one. Especially without much else to be sustaining him. We will see how that goes. But yeah. Lyle has just bought into, the name is Hubis. I should really figure out how I want to pronounce that instead of having to think it over every time I say it. But anyway, yeah, just he's at a ton of debt is the main point. So it's questionable whether or not he's going to be a profitable sub, especially with a 5 and a 6th Pleasure Dome going down. But he's going to be cheap, going to be a big stock price boost, and that's nothing to sneeze at. On the other hand, we do see now this nice $180 carbon price. Something that was always going to be a concern, and no one ever expanded into more carbon. Talked about that. This isn't enough carbon as a scavenger. You really, really want more. But it's fine. Lyle will get the buy done onto there pretty shortly, and should just be in control of the game. So X9 might have something to say about that. Water situation is just really awkward, but this double optimization center coming up, along with some strong patents, might be enough to pose a threat. Okay. Lyle mostly waiting for the money to come in, not looking to cancel things or sell out of too much. Could pretty easily have sold out of all that oxygen, just gotten the buy done sooner, but it is fine. No one else is threatening the buy, and the price there had just been decreasing. It's on the rise again now. Lyle actually takes the upgrade instead of the buyout, which is interesting to me. It should probably pay off, can very easily expand into a ton of carbon right now. No one can really... Okay, never mind. We're seeing carbon move here as well. Off a bribe claim, it looks like. Or wait. It's HQ3 before, so there's an upgrade, which is also part of what's driving this carbon price insane. Gonna make a ton of money off of that, and looks like the window to get this buyout done has closed, and also the upgrade not being able to take advantage of the price himself might end up looking like a pretty big missed opportunity for Lyle, but still solidly in the lead. HQ5, lots of money, and a decent number of optimizations already done. I'm curious what everyone has done about power. The answer is not much. With 6 pleasure domes on the map, it's always going to be a bit of a weird place. This guy does have a cold fusion, so the power price hasn't been going insane. In fact, for power surplus means that's been kept in check pretty well, but it's just going to be an awkward spot. I guess the way it manifests itself right now is, okay, there's the life support production, so this water is no longer going to be sustainable. These two prices are going to rise in tandem, and this debt is going to get more and more out of control. Since when can you have this many pleasure domes? You could always have as many pleasure domes as you'd like, but it was never a good idea. The only building that was ever limited in number was off-world markets. Right. Lyle did eventually manage to connect up those water pumps, as well as get all that carbon down. Nice little base here, a bit vulnerable to the EMPs, but able to shuffle things around pretty easily and has pretty good production down. Which, you know, looks like this buyout is ready to happen again. which is interesting because name is Hubis over here. Could just sell down all this carbon, could sell down a bunch of other stuff, could pay down a huge chunk of debt and be kind of alive, except not really. It is interesting that he's choosing not to, and also not choosing to do anything with the money, though so much of it is in this carbon that you're not thinking of it actively. It might be easy to miss. How is X9 Breaker doing now? Last we checked in, the 2 optimization centers were just finishing up. Got a bit of stuff onto optimizations onto a bunch of things, but largely focused on the reactors. Might be a bit of a problem with those prices crashing out. Would have liked to see a bit more diversification into food, maybe a little into steel. I would like to see some steel production down again at some point, because this is a problem when steel is $150. He does have nanotech, and that X9 will benefit a significant amount from that, but if they ever want to get to HQ5, steel will be necessary. Carbon scrubbing also doing great work with these chem labs. But Lyle finally finishing the buy over here and looking to just make a ton of money off of $300 carbon. That's just kind of how that works. This is a mistake. I don't think there's any other way to put it. Don't sabotage your own subs. There's no reason for it. All that money goes right back into your own pocket anyway. The way subsidiaries work, they sell down all their resources every second, and they give you 1% of all their money over 10K. Anyway, Lyle is well on the way to his next buyout. X9 will be bought out shortly. And Meltimus over here. Okay, they just expand into a lot of stuff. Just everywhere. Using that teleportation, but obviously all just coming too late. Not going to be able to challenge Lyle. Why is that? Why was this all too late? I think there are a few reasons you could point to. One, it's just a lot slower to get teleportation and all that stuff set up instead of just, you know, building adjacent to your base. 2 is because there were 3 geotherms built, like before he upgraded to HQ4, I think. I'm not sure when the 3rd one came down, but 2 of them were definitely down while he was HQ3. These are 120 steel apiece as a scientist. That is a ton of steel. And yeah, while some power was necessary, this is just really expensive, especially after he transitioned out of some of his steel. There was definitely a world where he delays the geotherm a little longer, gets to HQ3, claims some of these water tiles, stays on really strong steel production, and then gets a couple of geotherms out. But not what happened this game. Instead, just Lyle being the first one into the life support markets in any meaningful way and being able to sustain that production just got him a real nice lead. Nice little found with this devil tile. The one thing that was holding him back from being even faster was just this aluminum situation. It was very high early game, but no one was producing a significant amount of aluminum until X9 got that extra claim, so because Lyle was also already in the life support markets, it just hurt him less than it hurt the other people. They got more debt, they got less money. All kind of adds up to they fell way behind. So just waiting for that to get cleaned up. Other things that went on this game: black market, not used very much. Game ending with EMPs at 10k. 6-9 did what it could, but wasn't enough. And just any moment now. There we go. Well played.